really good friend, and I speak about him a lot, Ed Moxley. He ended up shooting a black duck that was banded, and when he got the information back, it was 13 years old.
Wow.
And I'll never forget what he said. He said, "Can you imagine not only what this duck has seen, but what he's avoided?"
Correct me if I'm wrong. It's the oldest duck hunting club in North America.
Yeah, so we're the oldest continuously operating duck hunting club in North America, 1856, pre-Civil War era.
And really have been one of the pioneers in waterfowl research.
So the guys that founded this place in 1856, a lot of them were the same people who started the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. They really had a conservation interest going back to the 1800s, and they've maintained that within the membership over 160, 170 years.
Sounds like a bunch of gamekeepers.
Yeah, it really does.
Hi, I'm Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the mystique of the mysterious black duck, the secret and elusive black duck.
The black mallard, as they call them down here.
There's something special about them. And let me go ahead and turn and let's get our guest introduced. We're so excited. We've got a young man from way up north, Mr. Brendan Shirkey.
Yeah, good afternoon. How is everybody?
Yeah,
Doing good. Thanks for being here.
And also joining it. And we'll get, so look, Brendan he's a research biologist for the Winous Point Marsh
Conservancy.
Bobby.
It's Winus, isn't it?
Is it Winus or
How do you
Winus?
say it, Brendan?
So it's either or. The locals call it Winus. Everybody else calls it Winus. So you call it whichever you want.
Are you a local, Bobby?
But it's not Winnie. It's not Winniest. We probably have to start that over. That's embarrassing, Bobby.
Winus.
he butchers all the names.
Yeah.
That's pretty consistent.
Well, so look, Brendan's got a long history with waterfowl. He's done a lot of research. He went, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase this. He went to Michigan State University and got Michigan State.
That's one of the MSU they get confused with.
Yeah. He got an undergraduate degree in wildlife management from the Ohio State. Why do we always have to say the Ohio State University?
Yeah. Is there another Ohio State University that we got to?
I don't require that. The university seems to, but you can call it whatever you like.
Yeah, and he began working as a duck hunting guide at Winous Point Shooting Club while still in high school. Is it Winous or Winus? What do you?
It's one of those, but
you're
not
adding
Winniest.
a syllable. Yeah, you're adding a
I
syllable.
know, it's not Winus.
Yeah, it's Winus or
just call it
Winus.
Winus Point.
Yeah,
Winus.
keep it simple.
Winus. Winus.
Okay, Winus. I got that. All right, so we've got another guest. We've got Mr. Chris Paradise.
Our very own, right there, buddy. Oh,
There
he
we
gets the
go.
kazoo. All right.
A special set of horns.
So, Chris, Toxie, would you say he may be one of the best salesmen that you've ever encountered? World class.
I think of him as a pickpocket more myself.
If something needs to be sold, Chris is the guy that you call because he can make it happen.
Ice to the Eskimos invented the phrase.
We're trying to compliment you, Chris. This is where you say thank you.
It's an odd compliment. I'll take it.
Well,
maybe it was the kazoo. I mean,
he is one of the most obsessed waterfowlers I know.
That's what I was going to
my
say.
goodness.
And nobody's into waterfowl more than Chris Paradise.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
I would love to say that I'm amongst a great company for that, and yes, but I would say that amongst all of us, a bunch of duck hunting fanatics here, which is why I love it. Everybody on the podcast today loves it, and that's why I think it's great.
So Chris has been around Mossy Oak a long time.
Long time.
He makes
a lifelong time.
Yeah, he makes a lot of stuff. Chris, we're glad you're here. Both of you guys are joining us. This club that has the toughest name to pronounce. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's the oldest duck hunting club in North America.
Yeah, so we're the oldest continuously operating duck hunting club in North America, 1856, pre-Civil War era.
That is incredible.
I know it is. And I think they've been leading the way in research and giving access to agencies too, I believe, hadn't y'all? And really been one of the pioneers in waterfowl research.
It's really
Yeah, it's pretty-
crazy when you think about it. Like that is a long time ago.
A long, long time
we
ago.
still had trees in the Mississippi alluvial delta when that was a original duck club.
Yeah.
Man,
That was before they cleared the delta for agriculture.
I'd love
right?
to seen that
Wow.
for sure.
So, is there an old historic camp house or any of those buildings that are still used?
Yeah, so there's a couple of so there's no buildings back to the original 1856, but we've got some 1800s buildings still on site. They actually redid the clubhouse 2010. They put up a new building. So we've got some newer facilities now too, but they've maintained kind of the historical look. We've got a lot of the old logs that go back to the 1800s, like historical records of what was seen and shot here, which is the history is what makes this place as unique as just its age, was they've maintained a lot of the history and the records.
Help us understand about the land there and kind of what the landscape looks like.
So 1850s, this was kind of the heart of the Great Black Swamp. So the Great Black Swamp was a 1 million acre, mostly forested wetland that stretched all the way from Lake Erie back to Indiana. So covered all of Northwest Ohio, which is what this place looked like when it was founded in 1856. But then shortly thereafter, all those trees were cut down and they drained that swamp, and it's some of the most productive ag land in the country now, Northwest Ohio. But it's all cornfields and soybean fields for the most part. But there's this band of coastal wetlands, so basically it was too low-lying to drain, that stayed, which is where the Winous Point Shooting Club was. So 1856 to the early 1900s, they shot primarily diving ducks. It was a huge freshwater river delta. Like if you guys have been on Lake St. Clair at all, where the St. Clair River empties into the lake, that's probably kind of sort of what it looked like big, huge bulrush expanses, lots of wild celery, wild rice, and they shot canvasbacks and redheads and bluebills. And then for a bunch of reasons, they started losing all that vegetation in the early 1900s. They put levees up to save what was left in terms of the marsh vegetation, and they started managing for dabbling ducks and shooting primarily mallards and black ducks by the 1920s, 1930s.
That's an incredible story.
It is, no doubt about it.
So, Chris, are you a member?
I am. I'm a very honored member to be part of such a great crew, and I think it's important to point out that along with the club itself, there is a conservancy. Brandon, maybe we should touch a little bit about the Winous Point Marsh Conservancy in general, and I think giving back to the resource, which is a key component to that, which was, to your point, Bobby, becoming a member as an honor is one thing for sure. We have a small group, a very dedicated group of conservationists, but it's also the back side of that, which is, I would say, 75% of the efforts put forth back towards the resource, which is a big deal. So, Brendan, if you got a few minutes up there, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, for sure, Chris. Thanks for the prompt there, because I think it's a pretty unique story. It's a really cool story in the hunting realm. There's not a ton of clubs that have taken this approach. But in 1999, they actually formed a 501c3, so the Winous Point Marsh Conservancy, whose mission is conservation, research, and education, basically raising the profile on the importance of coastal wetlands in Ohio. I don't know how familiar you are with Ohio, but in recent years, there have been, huge algal blooms in Lake Erie. Clean drinking water is an issue, and that's just further raised the profile and importance of what wetlands do on the landscape. So this conservancy was really kind of a little bit ahead of its time. But, you all mentioned the access that we give and the research that we do, and that's primarily my role here as the research biologist. So we support tons of grad students. I'll mention a couple of them today, talking specifically about black ducks. But we work cooperatively with the Ohio Division of Wildlife on tons of, obviously we're very focused on waterfowl. We do a lot of duck-specific research projects, but all kinds of wetland-dependent species. So we work with state endangered species like king rails and common terns and, stuff that people can't hunt but are dependent on these wetlands that we support. So it's a really cool story in the conservation world, and it really goes back. So the guys that founded this place in 1856, a lot of them were the same people who started the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. They really had a conservation interest going back to the 1800s, and they've maintained that within the membership over 160, 170 years. So these are people who, they love to hunt ducks, myself included. But they're just genuinely interested in the wetlands themselves and the landscape as a whole, and how it benefits ducks and all sorts of other species.
Sounds like a bunch of gamekeepers.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
So how many acres is the place now?
So it's about 3,000 acres of coastal wetlands. So it's all almost all of it is impounded wetlands at this point. So contained within levees that we manage with water control structures and pumps.
And you say coastal, we're talking about the lake, the Great Lakes edges.
Lake Erie coastal.
Yeah,
Yep,
just
exactly.
help, because when we say coastal down here, we're thinking of salt water. Yeah, we're thinking of salt water. Interesting.
And then I know this is a dumb question, but what flyway would you say you guys are in?
Yeah, so we're in the Mississippi Flyway in terms of regulation structure and whatnot. Ohio is, but we are the kind of on the eastern edge. And if you look at, because there's a lot of duck migrations that move from northwest to southeast. So we're really kind of at this hub of the Mississippi and the Atlantic as ducks come down through the Great Lakes. A lot of ducks that move through here will go down to Chesapeake Bay, and then others will go down the Mississippi River.
And Lanny, to that point, if you get heavy westerly winds, we'll get that convergence, which is a great thing. We get, basically two flyways merging in there.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see a lot of, if you will, species carryover that we may not see a huge portion of, like pintails or whatever it may be, coming out of the west. Depending on the weather and the fronts that push out of the west.
Well, it sounds like a special place. And I know we're here to talk about
Yeah.
black ducks, but I do have one more question.
Go for it.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the projects that y'all are working on. Can you kind of talk about what some of those current projects are, or some projects that have revealed some unique things for y'all's area or specific to the flyways?
And Brendan, not to prelude you here, but duck DNA, what's going on with our mallards?
That's exactly where I was going, Chris.
Something we've been very concerned about here at Winous Point and are looking into, but I think it's a good segue into that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's funny you both point to that, because that was a projects really that I was going to start with. So I'm guessing you guys are familiar with Dr. Mike Schumer, who's at the State University of New York. He's really spearheaded, him and Phil Lervetsky, who's the geneticist at UTEP. They've spearheaded a lot of this work. So there's backing up, there's concerns about declining mallard populations. And if you look at that trend, it really moves from east to west, which happens to coincide with game farm releases of these. They refer to them as game farm mallards. It's kind of difficult to explain, but they look just like a mallard. Not particularly easy to tell apart in hand, but they're of European descent, a European lineage. And we're going to talk about black ducks here shortly, but wild North American mallards and wild black ducks are actually much more closely related than these European mallards and wild North American mallards. So there's some concern that these genetics are getting into the wild mallard population, and it's actually maybe part of the driver for these long-term population declines that we've seen in mallards that kind of trends from east to west. So Mike Schumer's had, I'm trying to remember now, at least 3 or 4 students who have looked into this, like graduate level students. We've directly supported a couple of those, the most recent of which is Dominic Hockenberry, who's a geneticist, and he's trying to get at kind of the population level impacts of some of these traits. So there are physical traits. These game farm birds have really short, stubby wings because they're not designed for long-term migration, and they tend to have longer legs, and their bill structure is pretty different because they feed a lot on grains, bigger grains that people give them, as opposed to wild mallards that are feeding on small seeds out in the marsh. So he's trying to, and there's we've documented some behavioral differences in birds that we've caught and marked with transmitters here at Winus and across the eastern part of North America. So we know these game farm birds, they move less, they're less likely to migrate. They're much less attentive to their nests than the females are. So these are all things that you can see, potential bad things from a population standpoint. If hens are not attentive to their nests, that is not a good thing, and could be related to some productivity declines and could be behind this declining population of mallards in eastern North America. So that's just one project. I don't know how long we have.
That one's
we're
huge.
involved in a bunch of different things. Yeah, that's a huge
Yeah,
one.
that's a big one, and we've been tuned into that for some time now
Yes.
through Phil, as you mentioned. But what got me, I guess, a year ago, a little more, he was on, and I kept listening to the state of the Atlantic flyway, I guess it is, and he kept talking about, and I was like, well, what percentage of that population has got pure wild, genes of the mallards? and he held up his hand and made a big 0 out of it. He said 0. And that's when I almost had a heart attack. Good gosh, that's scary.
And the Great Lakes population is not far behind. Like it's a heavy mix of what they call these hybrid birds.
Yeah,
so they're
game farm
partially wild and partially game farm.
So are y'all seeing these morphological characteristics in some of the birds that y'all are harvesting?
And actually, when they're laying next to as close of a wild mallard as you can find, past couple of weeks saw it a little bit too. Even cleaning some ducks, you really start as you're handling them, you start to see those characteristics, deviate from the wild mallard. Definitely one thing I noticed is a little thinner bird, a little skinnier bird in terms of length. Their legs seem to be a little further back. Their bill's a little bit shorter. Mm-hmm. They just look a little off. And I've heard some guys say, that's just a young mallard. Well, look, we've seen enough to know that there's definitely a differential in the characteristics from that true wild strain over to what, this game farm has done.
Do those operations still exist where they have the game farm mallards and they train them to fly from one pond to another with feed, and then you just shoot them when they come in?
Don't even talk about
That's what is causing this problem for what I understand. Yeah. So apparently there's a lot of them on the East Coast.
Don't get me on the soapbox about having. I mean, if it's
we're here to talk about black ducks, but we definitely got off.
I had to mention that. I don't think we've ever really explained what that.
Yeah.
What the process is.
Yeah. It's awful.
It's these outfitters that have these ponds and they feed them and raise them to go from pond to pond.
Just like the quail thing, they're placing birds or training birds. So it's
Look, I'm not trying to pass judgment. That's not what I'm doing. But I've said it on every podcast I breathe. If it is a detriment to our precious critters, it's got to be stopped. I don't care how much money it generates. I don't care how popular it is with anybody. It has got to be. If it is legitimately doing it, I don't know, maybe we've got to vet things a little further with research, so let's do it. But if it is, we've got to stop it.
Yeah, I'm sure it starts with good intentions.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's not my opinion that matters. It matters the mallards is what matters. Mm-hmm.
The caveat here, which is a concern, is that even though it's a limited, varied degree of migration, it still does migrate.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get that movement to continually encroach into other areas. And Brendan, we can't determine whether or not, but as we talk about the black duck, I mean, look, there's some hybrid mallard black duck mixes, and does that strain start to penetrate that precious black duck? Because we shoot hybrids all the time, and that just makes you think, does that or has that already encroached?
Yeah.
Mm. So, hey, let me ask this real quick. Where you guys are located, looking at it on a map, Winous Hunting Club, and I think I said it right.
You nailed it, Bobby.
Wow, Bobby.
So I phonetically wrote it out on the sheet. So one of my favorite stories in the whole world are the winged missionaries of the Jack Miner bands.
Oh,
Kingsville, Ontario. That doesn't look very far from you guys. Do y'all get many Jack Miner birds coming through there?
So we don't get a ton, but so I've been here 10 years now, and we have recaught. So we caught one during banding operations, a Jack Miner band, and I've been on several punts where people have shot Jack Miners down here during the hunting season. So we do see them.
What's a punt?
So that's the term they use for the guides down here.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably need to explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I've never heard.
I thought it was like a punt gun. Y'all get to use them big guns and the canoes still up there.
No, I'm not using one of those.
Chris, if any Jack Miner bands have made its way on your lanyard?
No, they have not. Nope. I haven't been fortunate enough, but a very good friend of mine who has passed, also a good friend of all of ours, Ed Moxley. I witnessed him killing a couple over the years. So they do make their way, but there's not as prevalent as you would think, just because we're just south of them, not that far. But, and again, I'm not even sure, Brendan, how much they're truly banning up there comparatively to years past.
Yeah, I think it is down.
Yeah, I'd say I don't know how many they actually put out. So.
Yeah, that's a great story there, too. All right, so look, guys, before we get started, we're going to turn it over to Dudley and let him do some rapid fires and get to know y'all a little bit better. It's brought to you by Nutrient Ag Solutions.
Our buddies at Nutrient Ag Solutions.
We always pronounce them properly. That's good.
Yeah.
We've said it enough.
It's kind of odd to hear that, though. I mean, I don't think I could know Chris Paradise any better, no matter what you ask him.
Yeah, we could. But our listeners, it's for our listeners. For the listeners.
All right, so we're going to do both of you guys. So let's just try to be quick. And let's see. Chris is to my left, like reading a book. So, Chris, why don't you answer the question first, and then Brendan, you go next.
Go ahead.
All right. So, who introduced you to waterfowling?
My grandfather and uncles and dad.
Brendan?
My dad.
Name your first duck kill and species.
Hen mallard on Mosquito Lake Reservoir a long time ago.
All right. Brendan?
So it was a green-winged teal at Winous Point, and it was not flying or swimming. It was standing on a muskrat hut.
There we go.
There you go.
Perfect.
There we go.
Name a duck species other than black ducks that intrigues you the most.
Pintail.
Canvasbacks.
Name a dream destination for duck hunting.
Winous Point Shooting Club.
I was going to say, besides that,
I'm a homeboy too. Yeah.
And that is important to realize, and I'll answer it in a second, but I love being at home, seeing what we can do at home, gifted with what Winous Point is. But if it was something besides that, I'd probably be on Lake St. Clair for cans late season.
Okay. Brendan?
Yeah. So I love hunting in the cold, but I have a good friend who manages a WMA on the Gulf Coast of Texas, and I haven't been there yet. So I would like to get down there and hunt with him.
There you go.
Hint, hint. Hope he listens.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a Brendan only question. What brought you to wanting to become a waterfowl biologist? Was it more of a hunting thing, or more you were interested in the biology and ecology and whatnot? What first
So
kind
totally
of
got into it. Right. Got into it from the hunting perspective. So my dad was a guide at Winous Point, where I work now, before I was born. So I grew up running around out here as a little kid. The punters are allowed to hunt on Saturday afternoons, which is really unique. So it was that exposure. Like I came out here with him when I was 3 or 4 years old, just to tag along. I mean, I couldn't shoot till I was 9 or 10. And it was that exposure. And then, through school, I was good in science, enjoyed that sort of thing. Knew I couldn't work in an office, although I'm in an office an awful lot now. So that's how I ended up down the career path, was really the exposure to this place, and just kind of pure luck I landed back here.
There you go.
Okay, next question. Are you a deer hunter or a turkey hunter?
So if you threw a dart at the state of Ohio, you couldn't find worse turkey hunting than where we are. We have very few turkeys. We just have no trees. So not much of a turkey hunter, but do a ton of deer hunting. And my kids love deer hunt, so we do a lot of that in the fall.
All right. I know Chris.
Yeah, we don't have Chris, everything, all the above.
Okay, more fun stuff. What is your favorite family holiday side dish?
Oh.
Favorite
Holy
family
smokes.
Side dish.
Yeah.
Stuffing.
You know what? My wife's cranberry sauce.
No.
There you go.
Good plug.
Yeah.
Brendan?
Hope you listen, babe.
politically correct. Imagine that.
Yeah.
What about you, Brendan?
Stuffing.
Stuffing.
Ooh, all right.
We call it
Mom's recipe, stuffing.
Yeah.
We do dressing down here,
yeah.
but I can appreciate the stuffing. And then what about your favorite traditional holiday entree? Do you stick with the turkey, or would you rather have like ham, beef, or goose or something?
We do stick with turkey, but our family is pretty unique. Like whether it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever it may be, you'll see duck, you may see pheasant, you may see a rare grouse now today, which used to be more opportunities to put those on the table. But just the other night, we had some guests in town, and we cooked them a number of things, but duck was already in that mix as well. So we mixed in wild game to our gatherings for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan?
Yeah, I'm not a huge turkey or ham fan for the traditional entree. So if I can convince the family, we do grilled ducks pretty frequently for when we have guests for big occasions like that. They're pretty hard to beat on the grill.
They
I'm
sure
totally
are.
down for that. Next question. What is your favorite wild game meat?
Wild game meat. A rough grouse, hands down.
Probably blue wing teal, but perch would be a close second.
Ooh,
Oh,
okay.
perch,
Fish,
yeah.
yeah.
Perch
Good answer.
now.
Favorite preparation for duck?
As in terms of eating or shooting?
Eating.
Oh, well, in terms of eating, it's fun. So Brendan's dad, Tom Shirkey, one of our oldest active punters within Winous Point Shooting Club. And again, we didn't spend a lot of time on punters, but they are an integral part of everything Winus. They are guides, they are friends, they are confidants, they are people that make Winous Point such a unique place. So there is a big piece of that is about the punters and what they mean. And they range from all ages. We have punters, again, that are 70s and up to, younger guys coming into the mix that need a little hand holding at times, but quickly learn their way into the history behind what is a Winous Point punter. But back to the question specifically, we have a process we call shirkeying ducks. Brendan's dad, Tom, it's basically taking the wing piece along with a leg and part of the breast and being able to keep that fat on there and skin and putting it on the grill. So a lot of times when we come in from a hunt and they'll say, how would you like your duck prepared? And you would say, either breast them out whole, which is great because of the whole process. They dip them in wax and they can peel them off. They look like they're store-bought by the time you get them. Or shirkeying. In my family, especially the kids, specifically like shirking the duck. So we owe that to Tom, Brennan's dad. That is probably the best way to eat duck that we've seen.
Brendan, I'm just going to skip you on that because I know what the answer would be. So that is really cool. And
yeah, shirking.
And it's, I would think, and I know we're supposed to be quick on these deals, but you get all the benefit of the bones and the skin and the fat, and it doesn't take up near as much space in the freezer. So that makes a ton of sense.
Yes.
All right. So next question. If I know we have these fancy non-toxic loads, but if you're forced to shoot steel over decoying ducks, what shot size do you go with?
Good question.
2 to 4.
Threes.
And last but not least, who's a better shot and who's a better caller? Chris Paradise or Brendan Shirkey?
Oh.
Brendan by far. Because he will punch you sometime.
Well, I hadn't been
Chris
in the
is the better shot. He shoots at stuff I wouldn't shoot at.
I will second that.
Yes.
That
he will shoot at stuff I wouldn't shoot at.
I never even think about
kill
it.
And
he will kill it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of shells he's really shooting, but they work pretty good.
Well, I was trying to give y'all an opportunity to pick on each other, but you took the high road. So good answer. Good answer.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
That sounds like a really neat club. Lanny, Dudley, Tashi, I think we could probably look forward to maybe getting to go up there next year and do a podcast.
There it is.
Yeah,
what I tell you.
On location.
And that's the interesting thing about this place, and I want it to be known. Could you go places and shoot more ducks? The answer is probably yes. Could you go and see a wider variety of habitat? Maybe yes. But I'll never forget, because to become a member, there's an interview process, and it's so spectacular, and you don't realize it at the time. And Brendan, you know this, but there's lunches, there's dinners, there's breakfast, there's a lot of engagement. And one of the things that really come back to my mind about why it's a unique place is, again, I want to make sure people understand the amount of conservation, habitat enhancement, maintaining the principles. And look, it's tough for some people to realize, including myself at times. You're not going to drive into Winus and see row crops and corn and beans, even though there are reasons for some of that at certain times. But at our place, what we have found is by maintaining stringent parameters around moist soil, water drawdowns, we get a wide variety of ducks. And I love shooting what I call prairie ducks. Your pintails, your widgeon, your gadwalls. Believe it or not, seeing a ton of shovelers, seeing blue-winged teal in the volumes that we see them, and green wings that are hanging around here somewhere today. We've seen things happen at Winus that you don't see at your traditional type or style clubs. And again, not that those are any different or bad, or we're holding any judgment on any type of parameter like that. But we are unique, I would say, Brendan, to the majority of clubs probably in the U.S. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100% accurate. And even in the area, there's an emphasis, like you mentioned, on row crops, and super successful, especially for mallards and black ducks. But, we make a living early in the season shooting widgeon and pintails. And we shoot a lot of odd ducks in general because of that. And that really benefits us. And then we still pick away at the mallards and black ducks as well.
Yeah.
I like that kind of hunt.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to that.
Yeah, we do.
We got something to look forward to
Yeah, we do.
in the future. So, look, let's turn the page here, guys. And I want to ask y'all. I mean, everybody's got black duck stories, and everybody just holds them in such high regard. What is it? And I'll start with Brendan. What is it about the black duck that's so special?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, for me, so I'm from Northwest Ohio, obviously local to the area. Like Northwest Ohio is kind of a strong, so you think of black ducks as an Atlantic coast species. But this is a real stronghold in the Mississippi Flyway for black ducks as they come down through the Great Lakes. And they're relatively rare compared to your mallards. So in my opinion, I think one of the reasons people really like mallards is because they work decoys, they come to calls. It's kind of your traditional duck hunting, more so than some other species. And black ducks act just like that. They're, a big duck. They come to calls. They're around when it's late. But you don't see them in the numbers that you see mallards. So you always get really excited when a black duck flies over.
Yeah.
I'd say.
So, Toxic, when I first showed up around here in 1995-ish, I remember y'all talking about, boy, we used to have a lot of black ducks, but we don't have many anymore. And I felt like I missed out on something. But what was the difference?
I have no idea, but say the late 70s and 80s, just almost every hunt. There were, I would say we would see probably one for every 10 mallards we saw, even then. But I only had the one. Actually, was ironically called Cottrell Lake, which is our family name. But y'all know where it is, just out to the west of town. And there was a big natural slough, kind of an oxbow place, but it had 3 or 4 fingers of it that were open water. But I mean, that might be 5 or 10 acres at the most here and there. It wasn't like an open marsh. And they were always there. There were always some. You would see them every time you went hunting. And we killed them all the time. And then I would say into the 90s, they kind of disappeared. Today, because son Neil is a lot like Chris. I mean, he can see, whatever. He can read the label on a shotgun shell a half a mile away. It's crazy how good their eyes are. And that's way off. That's a black duck, or that's a widgeon, or that's a wood duck. I mean, just instantly it's crazy how they notice. But he sees them, I say once or twice a year. He'll go, "There's a black duck. See those right there? There's a black duck in them." But I don't know. It's been 10 years since anybody killed one that I can think about.
Yeah, I started waterfowl in the early 90s, and we regularly harvested them and saw them, but then it just tailed off, for since then, 100%.
Yeah, they were, honestly, here, I'm not even versed on, what they typically like, habitat-wise and all, but then they were just like the mallards. They were in wooded, pretty much kind of what I described, but it was kind of wooded. It had, some cypress trees and tupper gums and stuff in it. But they just, decoyed, and you wouldn't known any difference than a mallard.
No.
Matter
of fact, we'd shoot them. Oh, that's a black duck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And they would be mixed in with a mallard, just like they're one of the guys.
So, Chris, tell us your perspective on the black duck.
The black duck, for me, it's been mystical, magical. I can remember literally early days on public ground, Mosquito, Pymatuning Reservoir, again, eastern part of our state. And you think about the Atlantic Flyway, you think about the fact that, Eastern Canadian boreal forest, nesting grounds for black ducks, you anticipate that. But it has been a very, very interesting duck to me from when I was a little kid. I have numerous poses of black ducks mounted. My lovely wife, Claudine, will say, "Well, don't you have a black duck's already mounted?" And I am preening, flying, resting, My kids have shot them. The black ducks that are in my room at the club are both of them are shot by Michael and my daughter Ava, both banded at Winus. Wow. It has been a really unique duck. I've got a pair behind me here shot in 1994 on Pima tuning, hen and a drake banded. Just unique situations where the black duck has always captivated us. And what's interesting about it is certain people see a black duck and they say, oh, you know, that's kind of a muted looking duck, but they're gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And when they're flying and you see their white underside of their wings, they're highly identifiable. Just a great duck. Now, interestingly enough, you know, really good friend, and I speak about him a lot, Ed Moxley. He and I hunted many places over the years around the country, from Canada to Mexico to wherever. And he had a great little place up on the Sandusky Bay region called Moxley's Marsh. You know, Lanny, you were there.
Yeah, I've hunted it.
Hunted it, and it's a special little place. And he and I always talked about black ducks. And oddly enough, you know, shot a fair amount. Not that it was, you know, a huge volume by any stretch. But I'll never forget one day we were seeing a tremendous amount of black ducks in his rest area. While we were hunting, they were moving, they were flying. He ended up shooting a black duck that was banded. And when he got the information back, it was 13 years old.
Wow.
Now, there's black ducks, supposedly, if you go back and look at history, they were banded as far back as and as old as 26 years of age when they were actually looked at and recorded and found. But 13 years old, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, can you imagine not only what this duck has seen, but what he's avoided? And that's a really important statement, I think, when you think about it. They're a unique duck. They're a special duck. Certainly one that I will, you know, cherish forever. And then something else, it was kind of funny, and this kind of gives you the perspective of why they're so important. Yes, I mount a lot of black ducks. I'm intrigued by them. If you were to come in our house, I have a room that has a number of prints, mostly which are black ducks. But one in particular, when my wife and I decided to move more into town, we had looked at a house. And I walked in the house and she said, oh my God, I love the house. I wasn't exactly too fond of the house because I knew the amount of work that was going to go into the house. But I walked into the fireplace room, and over the fireplace was an original oil print from Rick Alley Jr. Now, you may not know who Rick Alley Jr. is, but it is important for what we're talking about today. Rick Alley Jr. was the main waterfowl stamp of numerous years winner for the duck stamp. And one of them was a black duck, and he did pintails and he did a number. But as I eased closer to the oil painting on the fireplace, it was an original Rick Alley Jr., and it was 6 black ducks preening, resting, sleeping on an ice hole with 1 drake mallard. Now, typically, you would have seen the inverse. 6 or 8 mallards and 1 black duck on an ice hole. But it wasn't. And I remember turning to a realtor who was a guy I went to school with, and I said, Seth, we'll take, as the honest to God's truth, I said, we'll take the house as long as the print comes with it. And he said, man, don't do this. I said, I couldn't be any more serious than I'm telling you that print is very important. A week or so later, he calls back and he said, well, you got your print and the house too, if you'd like it.
There you go.
And today that print sits in a very prominent place in the house because, again, it goes back to, it was an intriguing, it's just about the black duck. You would have seen the inverse, more mallards and maybe 1 black, but it's all those black ducks. Again, he lived in Maine. He painted in Maine. He was a lobsterman in Maine. That Atlantic flyway, a prevalent piece of history there, obviously, with the black duck. So it's transcended its way over to our house, and it will hopefully remain in our family for a long time. But yeah, the black duck is an important aspect of the species on the hunt for sure.
I told you he was a salesman, Lanny. I mean, you know that. So, hey, Brendan, so tell us about this boreal forest and where these ducks nest, and why are they? How is that different than what mallards in the area do?
Right. Yeah, so black ducks primarily nest in central, in terms of latitude, we're talking central Ontario and Quebec. So in the boreal, so big expanses of forested wetlands. So think like beaver ponds, well north of where we're talking about. So our mallards, the mallards that we shoot here at Winous Point, a lot of them are produced locally, so they breed in the Great Lakes. So, you see mallards in people's yards here, or any little wet spot out in a farm field might have a pair of mallards nesting on it. And then we shoot some that come from the prairies, but not nearly as many as what you guys are down there. But our black ducks do not breed here locally, at least not anymore, because they breed in forested wetlands. That's one of the theories behind why they're essentially a dark mallard, right? They evolved to be successful in a really dark setting, being in the understory in these forested beaver ponds. So they come from the boreal in central Quebec and Ontario.
What's interesting to me, and help me understand this, when I've been and hunted like on the East Coast and like North Carolina with a guy named Joe Albee, actually we all went and hunted with him. These guys would get real excited about black ducks, but they'd always be a pair of them. And there wouldn't be a big flight of ducks. It would just be two. And how is that different over there from where you guys are?
I mean, go ahead.
I was just going to say, very common to see that, Bobby. But interestingly enough, this past week, we have been field shooting mallards and blacks. And we got into, and I mean, we saw upwards of 15, 20,000 ducks hitting a 50-acre field. And I will tell you, for the first time that I can remember, we shot singles, and every person that we hunted with over a 4-day period shot their limit of black ducks 3 days in a row. 3 days in a row. That is a uncommon experience. But what I noticed more than ever, and a good friend of ours, Fred Zink, was on one of the hunts, and Freddie and I turned to each other, and for the first time, we had seen flocks of black ducks 10 plus. We were landing flocks of black ducks 10. Now it's late season. They're in larger volume, no doubt. They're roosting together. They're moving together, and they're moving in volumes of 2 birds to 500 to 2,000 in a flock at one time. But that was the first time we had seen a pure flock of just black ducks, 10 plus birds in our area, and I can't remember how long.
That surprised me. I was kind of expecting y'all to say we're not seeing as many black ducks as we used to, but it sounds like it may be just the opposite for you guys.
I mean, it's all perspective and time frame, right? So I had some notes, but I lost those a long time ago. But what you're talking about with the 70s tracks, like in the 1950s, 1960s, there were years we actually shot as many black ducks or more black ducks than we did mallards here at Winus, for some perspective. Now part of it is regulation driven. We can't shoot as many black ducks, but it's not even close. We shoot 1 black duck for every 7 or 8 that we shot back in the 1940s, 1950s. So they think that population is about half of what it was in the early 1900s. So they have experienced pretty significant population decline, but like Chris mentioned, they're a very hardy species. They're one of the last ones to leave. They will stick it out as long as they can up north. And we know that from the transmitter data too. So when we get conditions like this, they're even more likely, I think, to stick around than the mallards. So you'll start to see big concentrations of black ducks really late in the year, late during our hunting season.
Could it be possible that the expansion of the mallards is encroached on the black ducks?
So this population decline is pretty well documented. In the 70s and 80s, they started looking into it, and there were really 3 theories that were floated. One of which was competition and inbreeding with mallards.
Yeah.
And then the other 2 were declining quality of their wintering grounds, which is primarily the Atlantic coast, coastal marshes. And then the other one was declining productivity, but it's basically impossible to look at their productivity because they breed in really low densities all across this landscape that's just horribly difficult for people to actually access.
Mm-hmm.
And something, a little fact, and I heard this a long time ago. I believe it was from Ed Moxley, but it could have been somebody else. A pure strain of black duck has some indicators, obviously some from a species-specific indication. But in hand, what a lot of people don't know is a true black duck, pure black duck strain on the vermiculation, the speculum, if you will, on their wing, has zero white border or tipping on it. And so the black ducks, you'll see some of them, even the ones mounted here, you may catch a small, shadowing of white on the speculum. And Brendan can correct me if I'm wrong, but that has a mallard strain that is encroached somewhere and they're hybridized. But the black ducks that we were shooting here the past week, I would say it was about 50-50. You'd see some white tip, and then you see some real dedicated pure strain to the black duck. So when you shoot a black duck, if you look at the speculum on the duck, if it looks similar to what a mallard speculum would look like, it's most likely hybridized. If you get a real deep purple, black to purple, brown to purple speculum, then you have your pure strain black duck from what we know.
And Bobby, he's talking about the wing patch.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, Chris, when you're talking about hunting these birds, are you a guy that puts out a couple of black duck decoys in your spread specifically hoping that attract them?
I probably, more than I'll say in our membership, have more black ducks at any one time in my spread than anybody. In fact, I've had other members that I've hunted with ask me, do you like to use black ducks? And it's really, the reason is simply this. If you get 250 yards and on up, decoys on the water start to kind of just blend. If it's a real sunny day, if you have, good visibility, yes, you can see them better than most times. But one thing for sure about a black duck is it's a huge identifier. Now, the argument of whether or not that's drawing black ducks in, I will tell you, we had probably 2-3 dozen black duck full bodies out the other day. We were shooting black ducks over black ducks. We were laughing about it because we're like, well, maybe it does have some influence. But the reason I do it is simply an identifier. It's an attractant. When conditions are a little off, you can see black duck decoys a long way off on the water.
They're really closely related to like mottled ducks and Mexican ducks. And I'm assuming there's a couple of other species of this brown duck. Do any of the other species that y'all know of migrate, or is the black duck the only one that migrates?
Yeah, so they're all, variations of a mallard. So black ducks are probably the closest in behavior to a mallard, where they're breeding up north and migrating. Whereas the mottled ducks, Mexican ducks, they're pretty local to the marshes that they live in and never don't move big stretches to the north.
It's pretty interesting how they're so far apart from each other and look so much alike. And then, they breed like on the fringes, they don't really have the same patterns as the mallard.
As the rest of the guys.
Just kind of makes you think.
Yeah.
So, guys, can y'all talk to us about the differences in the male and the female in appearance?
Yeah, so we banned a lot of them. So I've seen a lot of them. So in terms of dabbling ducks, they're one of the harder ones to tell the genders apart. It's pretty subtle, the differences. Bill color is your best indicator. So the Drake black ducks have a bill a lot like a Drake mallard. It'll be a brighter yellow, pretty solid color. You won't see much in the way. They might have a little bit of a black like saddle down the middle like you see on hen mallards. But it's a brighter yellow, whereas the hen black ducks have an olive green bill, and there's a lot more black mixed in. And if you see any sort of speckling, you'll see a lot of dots. If you flip them and look at the underside of the bill, there'll be black speckles on there, and that's a pretty good indicator that you've got a female black duck.
Is that female black duck make a call just like a hen mallard?
Yeah. My opinion is they're not as vocal, but they quack just like a mallard.
He's right. You very rarely will you'll hear them if they're by themselves or you see them in a pair. They'll quack. They'll make some type of vocalization, but very rarely can you sit there and determine that black duck is engaging to your calling. 99% of the time, if they're in with mallards, it's usually a mallard.
Yeah. So, Brendan, as a punter, Or if you've got you see a group of black ducks, are you calling to them just like you would mallards?
Yeah, we treat them generally like mallards. I think that's one of the reasons people love them, because they will decoy and work calls.
Yeah, Dudley, when you growing up in the duck club where you grew up, did y'all have any black duck experiences?
No, and you know, kind of like Toxie was saying about, you know, Neil, you can pick them out of a group, and we would see them like when you would have a really good front come through, and it was like, you know, magical duck hunting where you'd have that tornado effect over your head, you know, maybe only happen once every 3 or 4 seasons. That's when you would see them.
Yeah.
My only experience, I remember we were in this spot called the Willow Hole, and it was just an amazing, beautiful hunt. Had that tornado effect of ducks just constantly coming into the hole. And my buddy Tommy Gregory said he saw one, and I saw it at the same time. And I drew my gun, and you know, good old blame it on the steel shot, maybe, but I wounded him, and we lost him. And
no!
It was just a terrible feeling. But you know, my dad died when I was young, and the only band that I inherited from him was a black duck band.
Oh, wow,
that's cool.
So how precious!
That's cool.
I still cherish that.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is
so.
good.
So, Bobby, I got a quick Mr. Fox story that describes what comes to mind when you say this is like, and you're very kindred spirits with Chris there, because y'all are so romantic about, you know, the canvasback, the pintail,
all of them,
certain species. You know, I mean, y'all are very, very kindred spirits about that, and I am somewhat, but the far opposite end of the spectrum from y'all is my dad, Mr. Fox. He could care less.
I know
and so,
exactly the story.
Yeah, we were with Daniel and Neil. They were pretty young, and so we're out like in a kind of open water type place in a blind, and you can see good. And so ducks are coming, and you know, they say, Papa, don't shoot. There's some mallards working. They're further off. Just hold on. No, hold on. Those are just ringnecks anyway. Boom! He shoots one down. And so dog brings it back, and they didn't say anything. It's their papa, you know. And so, you know, that wasn't a mallard. Okay. And so directly he does it again. And it's like, hold on. Boom, boom. He misses and flares the mallards that were. He's like, Papa, those weren't big ducks. Those weren't big ducks. You got to wait on big ducks. He said, son, to me, you got to understand your papa. A duck is a duck. And that was it. So, I mean, he went duck hunting to shoot a duck. He could have cared less what species it was.
I'm kind of on Mr. Fox.
I have heard that quote many times growing up hunting around Greenwood, Mississippi.
Yeah,
duck is a duck.
Duck's a duck.
Yeah.
We're duck hunting.
I'm kind of in between. I'm probably lean more towards being like Chris and Bobby.
Oh,
about
y'all are,
that.
you definitely got some romanticism.
But he did. I mean, to him, shoot a teal, shoot a ringneck, shoot a merganser, or whatever, shoot a mallard. He could care less. It just a duck's a duck.
But I will say that hen mallards were very frowned upon where I grew up hunting.
Yeah.
Like you didn't even want to write it down in the logbook.
Yep.
You know, you pick the green heads out, and you didn't shoot the
It
hen.
always seems like it's the first one that falls for me.
You know, to shoot a duck was an honor. To shoot lots of ducks was an honor. Zeros for the day were still great days.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give the example of there are days, and as I progressed through duck hunting, I cherished every facet of it. I wanted to know about every single species. I wanted to know about their habits, all that. And I can remember reading about Winous Point Shooting Club as a kid. I'd read about it. I think, oh my God, you know, to me, before I die, to be able to see it would be an honor. To be a member would be unfathomable. But one of the things that comes to mind is when I first got there, the expectations change on species and harvest based off of time of year. But I will tell you, you know, when there's, you know, some people may say, oh my God, you guys shoot gadwalls? Oh yeah. Yeah. When there's 2,000 working a hole and it's tremendous shooting, gadwall shooting's amazing. When the widgeon are in, boy, it's fun to shoot. When the teal are in, I mean, we have a pretty rough crew. When the teal are in, the group gets after the teal with a feverish pitch. But I will tell you, as the season wanes on and we get our big ducks in, I would rather, and I do this, it's, some people may disagree, but I become like that. I want to shoot 4 Drake mallards, maybe a black duck, maybe 2, maybe a Drake pintail. And I've been with punters at times that are almost astonished that I just landed 5, whatever species outside of that realm, but I'm being selective for a reason. And that's because there's an ability to do so, and it's not the end of the world if I don't. I hope that makes sense. But you start to become selective to where, I'll never forget, I was with one of our punters. His name's Ron Van Zant. Let me tell you, the first time I met him, he is a marsh rat like we all have been, were, and are today. He's a guy that truly grew up in the marsh. Someone, when I first met him, was so gruff, so antisocial. I thought, how is it possible that I have to spend my hunt with this guy, right? As it turns out, he's one of my favorite of all time. But when we are able to get together, and we have a process of which the punters are lined up based off of seniority and outings and all that with the appropriate member. And there are days when he and I go species hunting. And I'll never forget, I had shot a Drake mallard, a Drake pintail, a Drake black duck, a Drake widgeon, a Drake greenwing, and I had one bird of whatever Drake I was waiting, and I stood up off my marsh seat. And in December went by a fully plumed out, crested blue-winged teal. And I looked at Ron and I said, please tell me I imagined that. He said, no. He said, I swear I saw him earlier in the morning go by. I didn't say anything because I wasn't sure. And about 20 minutes later, he comes right back through, and I missed 2 shots. Because we shoot double guns. We shoot over and unders. And so the point being is, man, when it comes to species, sometimes it's just cool to hold on and see a different bird or chase different birds, but by no means does it mean we won't also take a chance at the others, when they're more prevalent. So definitely a life cycle of a duck hunter, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
So do y'all adjust your bag limit quotas based on the did I catch that right? Does Winus put those, besides the state regulations, do y'all say, hey, all right, this is what we're going to try to do? Or is that, are you self-imposing that on yourself? I guess is the question.
I'll give you a great discussion that has been and Brendan, we've had this discussion about all the changes. Look, imposing changes at Winus. I'm the chairman of the Marsh Committee. I'm a board of director. That doesn't mean anything when it comes to changing the dynamics of as old of a club as we have. And here's the example I'll use. So when shooting is tough, to shoot 4 mallards or whatever, but be waiting on 2 odd ducks or 2 odd species of ducks, it does 2 things. One, it leaves an everlasting imprint, an intrusion on the marsh. You're there longer, shooting longer. You're disturbing birds, and that's just less of an opportunity for the next hunter. So the self-imposed piece of that would be, one, we operate under federal guidelines,
sure,
100%, and Ohio guidelines. For instance, they give us 3 pintails this year. Now, yes, we've shot limits of pintails. We shoot 3 and another gets 3 or whatever. But the self-imposed, I think, responsibility piece of this is we are trying to get our membership to think about, if you shot 4 mallards and it's in December, late November, December, and shooting is good, but it's better to leave it a little more rested. Are we truly looking for 2 more odd ducks? And the 2 odd ducks, if we're truly looking for them, are you seeing black ducks, pintails, or are you waiting on a duck that maybe isn't the premier table fare? Is it worth it? So is 4 mallards enough? And can you eat more than, if you had 4 good days of shooting in a week, who's eating 16 mallards, right? Mm-hmm. So the mindset really comes back to, if you can self-impose less of an imprint on the resource, I do firmly believe that it's time to get out of the marsh. Now, if you have a guest, if you're seeing lots of black ducks, pintails are moving, totally understand that. No, I'm not ever going to stand in the way of someone wanting to, quote unquote, shoot a limit. But I think there are days when if you're fortunate enough to truly have 4 mallards of the primary bag duck for us in December, late November, get out of the marsh. So it's self-imposed, Lanny, more than anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're doing that on the turkey side.
I like it.
Yeah. Doctor, you're an advocate of getting out. Getting in, get out.
If you can, yeah. I mean, I'm listening to science and biologists constantly say, how important that is to your place and not disturb them. In fact, they said if you want to go check ponds or look in ponds, exhaust everything possible to not disturb them to check it. Don't go just get them up. Every time you get them up and you disturb them, might as well be hunting them too. So 2 things I've always said. One is obviously get in and get out. Sure, quicker the better. And then of course my sons and everybody around here just cannot wait to get there, plenty early, be able to look at your watch. Okay, it's legal shooting time now and all that. But when you go somewhere that's really a feeding place, which typically that's what they'll do at daylight. Not always. They get more nocturnal in the afternoon feeding later in the year. But if you go and you shoot that place, like a lot of times we'll go and, some of our best, especially for whatever reason, mallard, just like 7:30 to 9. It's not at daylight anyway. But you go at daylight and continue to shoot and stay in the blind or whatever all morning. I mean, they're going to eat. They're going to find somewhere. So if you do that again and again and again, and all you do is shooting them at daylight when they come to feed somewhere, you're really, I believe, as counter to keeping them on your place as you can be. I remember we called him Big Duck, Carsey's dad. He was a pioneer, in conservation and hunting around here.
Sure was.
And he would never go at daylight, ever. He would go sometimes as early as like 7 o'clock. And then he would, his best spot out there where he could control the water and everything. It was a big hill, and he'd pull up on there and watch them in binoculars, and he'd see where a concentration of them were, and he'd just ride in on his Argo, get them all up. And then as you begin to hunt, you weren't shooting over all the ducks that you had.
They were just coming back a
That's
few
right,
at a time.
kind of more onesie-twosie, yeah. Plus, you let them feed first, so, anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I'm not saying I know anything about that, but in my opinion, we could all be a little smarter and just learn from the biologists and the people, doing the research.
In the Cohen Wildlife study that actually we did a podcast on, it's specific to pressure and how it's moving ducks.
Yeah.
So I think it's on the Timely Classic. You can jump on and listen to the amount of pressure, how pressure, I think, I'm summarizing this, had a greater impact on where the waterfowl were than anything, which makes sense, but I think they've proven that.
And how they avoided blinds.
Yeah, they avoided blinds. Sure did. So
that was pretty amazing. That drone footage of that's amazing.
Oh, with Brandon Martin's stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and if you're talking about shin under pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the greatest piece of documentary, in my opinion. And I firmly believe this after managing our own family place, to seeing it at Winus, to seeing it on public ground. Food is important, no doubt. And they have to have the ability to forage. And I will also say that while there may be arguments where row crop produces, below 32 degrees and that need for additional energy, there is also the argument that foraging moist soil, natural wetlands, causes them to move more frequently. As crazy as that may sound, we see that nocturnal behavior start to develop in and around the crop program more and more. But what we have implemented this year, and Brendan, a lot of discussion about this, but we implemented rest areas within Winous Point that have never existed, that I'm aware of, Brendan. Lattimore, our west side, Metzger's units. What we've done is we've implemented places that we're shooting locations as rest areas. And if I sent you a video on my phone of an area in the Metzger's unit, I stood up in the punt boat in sheer amazement at the volume of ducks, moist soil feeding in areas that, well-known shooting areas, but then we turned into no hunting, no pressure, no anything. And the immediate response of the duck to inhabit that and use it as a resting area. And secondly, to Toxie's point, which he and I are cut from the same cloth here for sure. I can remember just hunting with you and hearing these words, but except for Neil that day.
Yeah.
But the idea of we have the ability to morning hunt or afternoon hunt. I started morphing the two into a midday hunt when it works and it's, I'll say, allowable within the realm of what we're doing. And that is because I hate shooting first light at a dark object and large volume when everybody's moving. The education period is no greater than first light. I do like being able to see what I'm shooting because, as we all know, at first light with a 2-hen, parameter limit, wrong things can happen if you can't ID as good as possible. And then lastly, as we go in towards the evening, if you can get out early before they're all resting again or coming in to feed somewhere, it just maintains that premise that the intrusion to Lanny's point, that footprint, that disturbance is limited because it really isn't about the food. And yes, the shooting does it, but in and out with boats, constant pressure at peak times of morning and night. If we could all learn to avoid that, and it's difficult because that is the biggest volume of birds for somebody who maybe hasn't shot, it would serve us all a lot better.
That's good advice.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah.
Guys need to think about that. So
Self-regulation we talk about a lot in the turkey world, So just
and it's no two places are the same.
That's
no
right.
two habitats. You may have an area that the ducks don't overnight in, and it may be to your advantage to get in there before the ducks get there.
Yes.
As opposed to running them out, so it just kind of depends really. And we hear that all the time.
it does.
Yeah, and I
depend.
mean, it got to be a thing. We would go to spots here that were just kind of open ground, and there would be so many. I mean, I was amazing for around here. So many ducks, and we're just giddy, and then it was a terrible hunt.
Yeah, terrible hunts.
And I mean, someone go, well, they were roosting there, Well, guess what? They weren't. They were just feeding at night.
Now they're feeding at night for sure. I have no doubt about that.
Look, there's varying degrees. Public ground. I mean, look, if you'd have told me as a kid, hey man, don't shoot a first light on Mosquito Creek. When shooting time comes, I need you to sit back tight and just identify your species. There would have been an issue. And that's why there are varying degrees of managing and conservation. That's why I love we talk about them all.
Yeah.
But if you ever have the opportunity to inflict a little bit of change, it does go a long way. And believe me, I like shooting them as much as the next guy, but it does make a difference. There's no question about it.
All right, well, let me ask Brendan this. So as a biologist, what are you thinking about the future of the black duck? What's giving you pause, or are you positive or are you negative on the future of the black duck?
Oh man, that's a good question. I guess I would say neutral. Hopefully that's not too much of a cop out.
No.
So if you think of like bald eagles, right? There was this smoking gun with DDT. Like we knew that was the problem and we could fix it. And we've seen this huge comeback. Black ducks, I mentioned those 3 theories. So declining habitat in the wintering grounds, declines in productivity, which would be boreal forest related, and then inbreeding or competition with mallards. We really don't have that smoking gun with black ducks. Like their population is still down. It's still half of what it was 60 or 70 years ago. But we really don't have a clear picture as to what's driving it. And in reality, it's probably a combination of all of those things. So it's not going to be an easy thing to fix, I don't think. But there's a lot of people working on it.
So would you say they're stable at least, or are they still declining?
I think they're stable-ish right now. Yeah, they're I mean, that decline, it's a long ways from where they were historically, but so in Ohio and I think throughout the Mississippi Flyway, they actually bumped the regs up from 1 to 2 in I think 2018. So we can actually shoot 2 black ducks instead of 1. And
Wow.
you can see it in our harvest. Like we're not suddenly doubling our black duck harvest because we shoot what's there. We're shooting what's around. So that doesn't seem to have a big impact at the population level. So they're, they can still sustain some harvest and we see them around, but we would never go out and shoot as many black ducks in a season as we are mallards, which is something that happened in the 1950s.
It's saying here, and this is just internet stuff, so take that for what it is, Bobby. This is not Wikipedia. Though.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that that the 2025 data showed a 6% decrease from 2024. However, the population remains 11% above the long-term average, indicating stability since declines bottomed out in the 1980s. So
we're cheering for the black duck.
100%.
Oh,
We're cheering for all ducks and the black duck too. That's right.
And to that point, Laney, because there's a book, and it basically focuses on the black duck shooting. Lynn Bogue Hunt was the one who kind of depicted the story, but talked about it. But the black duck, and if we look at some of that data, which is interesting enough, some of the things you go back to when they were market shooting these birds, but 80%, I think, of the overall harvest, and I don't know if it's changed, but I looked this up at one point, 80% of the harvest is in the Atlantic flyway, right? So much depends, Brendan, on what's happening below the breeding grounds all the way through that Atlantic flyway. We're getting a stable, effort over here that's, we see about the same, and maybe it doesn't change our bag limits. But what really goes on that East Coast, and that takes us back to duck DNA. I just hope that this all doesn't start to get gelled together where the black duck becomes, hybridized, if you will, even further beyond just a mallard black duck hybridization, but it turns into a mallard black duck farm duck hybridization of sorts, which cannot help what we're obviously discussing here. So again, it's not to be a black cloud on that, but just something to keep in mind.
I'll say it. Something has to be done about the game farm mallard regulation.
Yeah, we certainly agree with that. So, hey, Richie, why don't we ask them a trivia question real quick?
Sure. Oh, let's see how much these guys know.
Brendan's got this one.
Hang in there, Brendan.
All right, so if you get this right, you win $2,000. Just kidding.
Yeah, you giving them you ponying up some money there?
I was just joking. Chris backed out.
All right. Today's trivia is brought to us by
our buddies at the Peanut Patch that have our. Don't you love the boiled peanuts?
Boiled peanuts.
Oh, God, I love it.
Yes.
Love them.
All right. So, and our listener that left a review, Magnolia TM, 5 stars by far. One of the best podcasts, most informative out there.
Good grief.
That?
Well, look at that.
That's for somebody from Mississippi.
You're kind of blushing over there, Bobby.
We love the 5 stars. All right, come on.
All right, here we go. What's the most famous black duck in the world?
What's the most famous black duck?
I have an idea, but I'm not saying it. Go ahead, Brendan. You go ahead, but
I'm going to say Daffy Duck.
Oh, my goodness. How about that?
What? That's awesome.
Not this little black duck.
How about that?
Yeah.
A fully dimensional, well-rounded biologist.
Yeah.
There you go, Brendan. Wait, so the prize, you get to go through Chris's closet.
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Anything you need from Chris's office.
Hey, you
just
think
take.
my closet's something? You
Yeah.
need to see Chris's closet.
We do need to start giving away stuff from Chris's closet. What a
we
great
can do
idea.
that, yeah.
That's
We're
a
gonna-
great
we're gonna-
idea.
I take care of our guys. Don't worry.
I know you do. Oh my gosh! You think he would be a great episode of Hoarders?
Yeah.
Big time.
That's right.
Yeah, here we go. So, yeah, right. I give away more. You know how funny that is? I give away more to people. If I see somebody with a leaky coat
He does.
or a pair, I
does.
give it away. And then I find myself when I get the phone call to go field hunting, I'm like, where is my stuff?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's because I give it away. So I have a trivia question.
Uh-oh.
for us.
Back at you.
Yep.
Huh?
Yeah, Bobby.
Dang
Let me
it.
just check and see what the rating was on it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Chris Paradise, 5-star rating.
Of course.
So what was the first year of the federal duck stamp?
Bobby Cole, that's for you.
Yeah.
You should know that.
Turnaround's fair play. You love
Yeah.
grilling people. Go, Bobby.
For some reason, I want to say 1926, but I could be.
You're close, but you're early. It was 1934. There were some renditions prior to that that were involved. If you've ever listened to it's a cassette series of people that were very involved in the early days of Ducks Unlimited and all that, but it was 1934. But the real trivia question is, what was the first time after 1934 that a black duck was utilized as the duck of choice for the federal duck stamp? In what year?
God.
Bobby, you know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So that one's so easy. I'm going to defer that one to Lanny.
I'm over here asking Google. Give me just a second. I can't type fast enough.
So while he types that up, you mentioned Lynn Bogue Hunt. We actually found
Yes.
we actually found some artwork this morning that we I suggested that we use that as the descriptor for this podcast. It was 6 or 8 black ducks dropping it. It was a vintage art. It was beautiful.
Hey,
what a great hunter name too.
Yeah.
so just a small, we don't need to include this, but Lynn Bogue Hunt, and this is how interesting the world is. Lynn Bogue Hunt is a very famous artist, not only in on the palette, but I would say from custom plates, glasses, coffee mugs, all dating back to the very beginning. And I took an interest in this, and I collected it. And in a room in the house, I have every single piece I could have ever found from Lynn Bogue Hunt, complete plate sets, teacups, you name it. Claudine goes to a estate sale in a town called Hunting Valley. Very old historical part of the area. It's where I do a lot of deer hunting, turkey hunting, what have you. But in terms of that area, in our area, Hunting Valley, it's its own little, if you will, piece of Cleveland that is extremely unique. And many of our members are from Hunting Valley. She goes to the estate sale. And this is so cool because it involves not only Mossy Oak, but also Lynn Bogue Hunt. She walks into the estate sale and my phone is blowing up. I'm on a call. I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. I call her back and she said, there is a closet here full of Mossy Oak with some of the tags still on it. She FaceTimes me, and it's a few of the original yellow patch, squared patched, bottomland, and some other things. I said, oh my gosh, just buy it all. She said, I said, buy it all. Buy it all. Just buy the whole thing. And she says, oh, and there's this really interesting room off the kitchen. It has a bunch of duck plates, cups, all matching sets. I said, zoom in. It was all Lynn Bogue Hunt. Every piece. And Brendan, guess who the member was? Floyd's father.
Oh, okay. That makes
Isn't
sense.
that crazy?
So I guess you bought all those too.
How
Yeah.
about that? We can start giving those away as surprises.
They're brutal,
Yeah.
Chris. They're brutal. I have nothing left anymore.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, I got one question on how do y'all decide who gets to go where?
Oh, it's an elaborate process.
So let me just say it's the coolest thing ever, which Brendan is involved with every evening. And I hope I described this properly, Brendan, as a member standpoint, then you can think about it. So Brendan, John, CJ will come into the most historic but intriguing room within the clubhouse, and it's an aerial map on a table. And there's a leather bound, if you will, type of what we call pips, which are numbered 1 through, I think, 15 or more. And then sometimes we go into, and those are red, and sometimes we go into black. And John shakes them up. The members are standing there, and he hands them out, puts them in your hand, and then he calls for number 1. And if you have a number 1, you get to put it where you'd like to go.
Gotcha.
And that's usually prefaced with a state of the marsh, if you will. We're seeing birds here. We've had some movement here. We're holding a few here. There's not much going on here. But even if you draw sometimes a really rough pip, you can usually eke out something, which is pretty cool. But it's elaborate, and you would think.
Kind of like
oh my
bingo,
God.
sounds like.
You know, what's funny?
Yeah.
What's funny, that is it's different, but exactly the same, if that's possible. But Choctaw Bluff, I've told y'all about how they choose territories and stuff. And it's ironic, it's almost identical to that, just with cards and all. But that's the oldest turkey hunting club in the country.
Yeah, they do it at the public draw hunts here too. They've got
But
basically balls. And
it takes a while because you just get one person
territory.
one person at a time. Then it starts all over again, one person at a time. So, if
I'm sure there's no interaction or conversation.
Oh my
around
goodness,
that,
there's so much laughing and carrying on and fun about all that. But the same thing before they start drawing, then they would give them kind of it's funny, they would give them This is
Goblin
probably where
report.
it differs. They would give them kind of a general report.
They ain't telling everything.
But then you could see one by one as someone draws, they've got like 10 minutes to put their name up. They pull them off to the side and kind of get private information about stuff.
Oh, you had 10 minutes to put your name up?
or less.
Oh, yeah. I would think it'd be like.
We don't get 10 seconds.
Yeah, I bet you better act quick up there.
Well, but here's really what's cool in the gentlemanly aspect of it. Let's just say Bobby was my guest, and he was standing next to me.
That sounds good, doesn't it, Bobby?
Bobby, how did that sound?
Why Bobby? I mean, it's always about Bobby. I don't get it.
Because I asked Toxie, and it's all right. We know he'll be there soon. But here's the cool
It's
thing.
not like I went anywhere else, that's for sure.
No, he hasn't. He comes here. But I will say this. So if I draw, let's just say 15 or 12 or 9, I'm a late draw. But we have a guest. The great thing about our membership, the honor, the tradition, is whoever sometimes draws 1 through 5, they will walk over. Chris, would you like this?
Oh, that's cool.
And so you have a chance to entertain your guest and show them a great time. And then the reciprocal part of it is, which I've done many times. I went through a run there. I was drawing like 1s and 2s. You learn to pay it back. And that's what's cool about duck hunting. You want everyone to share that experience about saying, hey, you took care of me, here you go. That's what's really special about it. And even though you'd love to have a number 1 pick or whatever it may be, it's sharing that steep tradition, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it is. Sportsmanship.
That's right.
How
You
about
need,
that?
you need to learn something about that.
No,
down
we
there.
got one on. Yeah, we all need a little lesson in sportsmanship. And I've got a quote. I've got 2
Of
quotes.
course he has a
one is for
quote.
the duck hunting world, and one is specifically for Chris. But let me read this real quick. Brendan, I think you might enjoy this. Being the punter that you are, to hunt ducks, you must leave your comfortable, predictable surroundings for that less familiar place where ducks work their magic. Their spell is cast only where they, not you, call home. And once there, you will refresh your soul and rediscover a simple passion. I thought you'd raise your arms up, Brendan. I thought you would.
Oh, amen to that.
Chris is wiping tears from his eyes.
Yeah.
All right. So here's a quote for Chris, because Chris makes decoys too. Look
Yes,
at those
he
black
does.
ducks up there. So-
Beautiful handmade decoys.
all right.
Sure does.
There is no feeling in the world like that of seeing ducks dropping out of a winter sky, coming to decoys that you made with your own hands. Sometimes you can't even shoot. The sight is so beautiful. Carving decoys lets a man understand in a very personal way that there is such more to hunting ducks than just shooting them. How about that?
How about that?
Amen.
Good
There
job,
is a lot
Peter.
more to hunting ducks. than
Wait.
shooting.
You said that was for Chris?
Well, yeah, I did.
I don't think he's ever had something where he said, I just can't shoot.
True.
He might choose not to shoot, but
Not can't
Look.
shoot.
not can't shoot.
We can romanticize a lot of things in life. Turkey hunting, and I'm speaking to the outdoors. Deer hunting, we've done a great job with slow-mo, and we do so many things to create the epitome of a story. And Mossy Oak was the beginning of that. But it is difficult to argue the romantic application with waterfowl
100%.
because it's the
Yeah.
migratory birds.
Yep.
And the
When you-
sunrises. I mean,
When you can be there at first light to last light or withstand, and I say this is so important, but the presence of a dog in the marsh
Mm-hmm.
completes everything.
sure.
And I know that more than ever because of the dogs we've had and still continue to run. But there's just so much that goes into duck hunting, waterfowl hunting, that it is truly the epitome of romanticism, and I don't back away from that at all.
Yeah.
No.
I may
Let's
have a
celebrate it.
tear
It's
in my eyes.
awesome.
It's great.
Yeah, we embrace it. Lanny, did you come up with the date on that stamp?
Oh,
His trivia question.
It's 1940.
There you go. Look at that. We are undefeated, Chris. Nobody has brought us a trivia question. We have
I
not
can't
answered.
believe
Who was the
it was
artist, Bobby?
19
I have no idea.
Francis L.
Actually, no. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was one of 2 people, which would have been Ding Darling. I got to go back and look. It was either him or on a mallard that he did, but I knew it was 40 or 41. But he has his own preserve, actually, in Florida,
Oh, wow.
which if you haven't visited it, it's an amazing place to see. So
Ding Darling. One day we're going to do a podcast just on Ding because he's got a great, interesting
All
story.
kind of stuff.
Yep.
Oh man.
So, Brendan, it's been great to meet you. And we just celebrate the work that you do up there being a waterfowl biologist.
Amen.
What do you say?
Amen.
Appreciate your service.
Yeah.
Big show. Thank you for your service.
That's right.
Keep up the
Thank
hard
you
work.
guys for having me
Yeah,
on.
and look,
Those are
keep Chris out of the blind because we know he's blocking some of these ducks from getting
No,
down
I say,
here to
whoa,
us.
keep him in the blind up there so we don't have to worry about him down here.
Well, that's a good point too. There
You
go,
don't
buddy.
have to, hey, you don't have to worry because we could ice fish right now
Ooh,
around.
those ducks better be your way now.
yeah, we
'cause
might
it
kill
is
some.
I don't
ducks,
know.
that's right.
Send them on.
I'm going to find out this afternoon.
Yeah. All right, Lanny, you got one more?
Well, yeah, just one more thing. Don't forget, we got the 400th episode giveaway going on.
Yeah.
Lots of winners. Be sure to go and sign up for that. And like us, follow us, subscribe on YouTube if you like to hear what Bobby's talking about all
Or
the
they
time.
can see like the black duck decoys that we've got laying here on the table.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, be sure to follow us, like us, and subscribe.
And the winter issue of Gamekeepers is in the mail right now.
No,
Yeah.
So good.
Yep. And there's a lot of duck hunt stuff in this one.
Yeah,
There's
the
a pair
coast.
of mallards on
Yeah,
the cover,
there's-
right?
Right there.
It sure is.
That's true.
Boom.
Nice.
All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for joining us. We
Hey.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Brandon.
Brendan, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, guys. Looking around. Why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Richie.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast. And be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.